Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening. This is Primetime Asia and I'm Malini Jani. Now this week in Primetime Asia we will bring you some of the events and happenings in the Asia Pacific region. The new cabinet has officially been launched in Tokyo last Wednesday after an attestation ceremony at the Imperial Palace. The lineup includes an extra post for Abe's new push to create a nation where everyone plays an active role in society. Japan also pledged aid to Sri Lanka by bolstering its maritime security and to provide patrol ships. While in Australia, Japanese consortium bidding for a $35 billion project to build stealth submarines for Australia said that it can do it if the Australian government requests it. And in India, the future is bleak for the world's biggest ship recycling center, where more than half of ship-breaking yards have shut in the past 2 years. Dayanku Susilawati Pangeran Haji Muhammad Sabri has the details.
The Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has retained close allies in key posts in the cabinet reshuffle this week, playing it safe as he refocuses on the economy after enacting divisive security legislation that dented his popularity. 9 of the 19 cabinet members kept their portfolios, including Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshide Suga, Finance Minister Taro Aso, and Economics Minister Akira Amari. Defense Minister General Nakatani and Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida also stayed on. Maverick lawmaker Taro Kono, a frequent government critic, was appointed Minister for Administrative Reform, a position similar to that he held in Abe's Liberal Democratic Party, LDP. Abe tapped veteran lawmaker Moto Hayashi, 68, for the trade and industry portfolio, replacing Yuichi Miyazawa after just over 1 year in office. Hiroshi Hase, a former teacher and professional wrestler, will replace Hakubun Shimomura as education minister. Shimomura had said he would stand down over missteps that included the scrapping of plans for a new national stadium as the centerpiece of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Abe's attempt to boost his rating with a broad cabinet makeover, including 5 women, backfired in September 2014 when 2 ministers quickly resigned over scandals. This time, as expected, he opted for stability as he refocuses on the economy after the unpopular security legislation passed. Mr. Abe also promoted Katsunobu Kato, a Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, to a new post in charge of his latest goal to build a society in which all 100 million people can be active. Their slogan, Abe Aids Say, is meant to show that all Japanese will be included in economic growth. Abe has been trying to demonstrate renewed commitment to fixing the stale economy. He recently unveiled 3 new policy arrows that aides say subsume an original trio of hyper-easy monetary policy, public spending and reform. The new targets are to expand the economy by 1/5 to 600 trillion yen, or about $5 trillion, boost the fertility rate, and reform the overburdened social welfare system. Prior to the cabinet shake-up, the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has pledged aid to Sri Lanka in a meeting with his counterpart, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, and reiterated a promise to help Sri Lanka bolster its maritime security and to provide patrol ships. Sri Lanka is moving away from the former government's pro-China stance and has suspended most Chinese-backed infrastructure projects. It is also trying to put more emphasis on ties with Japan, which dovetails with Abe's hope to counter a rising China. Sri Lankan government officials said in July that they were seeking sources of cheaper funding to replace about 70% of the more than $5 billion in debt from Chinese lenders with loans at cheaper interest and longer duration. Mr. Abe had pledged about 45.4 billion yen, or about $377 million in infrastructure aid, while Wickremesinghe said his government would create a more favorable investment climate by ensuring transparency and good governance. The Sri Lankan president also called on more Asian presence in the United Nations Security Council. Japan has long been bidding for a seat in the Security Council to counter China's presence there. A Japanese consortium bidding for a $35 billion project to build stealth submarines for Australia said that it was confident it could build boats onshore in Australia from day one if the Australian government requested. Its European rivals, ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems from Germany and French state-owned naval giant DC&S, had both previously pledged to build the subs entirely in Australia, but Japan had been reticent to commit until recently. Japan is hoping Australia will choose a variant of its 4,000-ton Soryu submarine for one of the world's most lucrative defense contracts. It played up the high-capacity lithium-ion battery, the world's first, as well as the stealth technology that they said they were happy to share with Canberra, despite concerns over espionage from Beijing in particular. The so-called hybrid option of building some boats in Japan and others onshore in Australia could be the cheapest option for Australian taxpayers. On the sidelines of the meeting, a Foreign Ministry spokesman, Mr. Ishikawa, considered that the consortium, which includes the Japanese government, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Kawasaki Heavy Industries, had not done enough to woo the Australian public and was shifting tactics to focus more on winning the PR battle. Former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who ended a decades-old ban on weapons exports last year, enjoyed a close relationship that saw Japan emerge as the early frontrunner to replace Australia's aging Collins-class subs.
Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, the future is bleak for the world's biggest ship recycling center on India's Arabian Sea coast, where more than half of ship-breaking yards have shut in the past 2 years. And the world's biggest ship recycling center on India's Arabian Sea coast, workers with blue torches cut segments of steel stripped from the rusting hull of a towering cargo ship sold for scrap by its Japanese owner. In Alang, a town located in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's home state of Gujarat, more than half of the ship-breaking yards have shut in the past 2 years, and the future of the trade in India and neighbours Bangladesh and Pakistan is bleak. The industry has been hit by a flood of cheap Chinese steel, and new European Union environmental rules due later this year threaten to push business to more modern yards in places like China and Turkey. The ships sold to South Asian breakers, which control about 70% of the market, are winched at which high tide onto a beach where they are taken apart by mostly migrant labourers. Equipment such as radars, engines and even tables and chairs are taken off and sold. The steel from the hull is removed for scrap. It takes up to 9 months for a typical bulk carrier in India to be broken up and its steel processed. About 60,000 used to work in the yards, with thousands more in spin-off businesses. Due to a plunge in steel prices, ship owners are getting about $3.6 million less for the 25,000 tons of recoverable metal from a typical iron ore or coal carrying ship than just 8 months ago. With China's economy slowing, its steel exports soared 51% to a record of 93.78 million tons last year and are up nearly 30% in the first 5 months of this year. The impact has been felt in Alang, where the number of active yards fell to 50 this year, apart from more than 100 in 2014. The number of vessels beach also dropped to a 6-year low of 275 last year and was only 54 in the last 3 months.
Welcome back. Activists yesterday marched through the Peruvian capital to protest what they call the anti-poor policies of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, which are holding their annual meetings there. Around 2,000 demonstrators joined the march, carrying signs with angry slogans and at one point burning the flag of the United States, where the IMF and World Bank are based. A week ago, 12 Pacific Rim countries have gathered in Peru to seal a deal on creating the world's largest free trade area, delivering Barack Obama a major policy triumph. APEC trade ministers announced they reached agreement on the ambitious Trans-Pacific Partnership just before dawn, capping 5 years of difficult talks led by the United States. Spanning about 2/5 of the global economy, the hard-won deal aims to set the rules for 21st century trade and investment and press China, not among the 12, to shape its behavior in commerce, investment and business regulation to TPP standards. Primetime Asia also brings you latest efforts in the tourism drive in Uzbekistan and some weekend festivals in China. Dayanku Susilawati Pangeran Haji Muhammad Sabri Agran has these reports.
Que empujaron al Perú a incorporarse en el proceso.
Peru government has hailed the finalization of the ambitious Trans-Pacific Partnership TPP pact struck by 12 Pacific Rim countries earlier this week, which aims to liberalize commerce in 40% of the world's economy. The pact struck in Atlanta after marathon talks could reshape industries, change the cost of products from cheese to cancer treatments, and have repercussions for drug companies and automakers. 5 years in the making, the deal would reduce or eliminate tariffs on almost 18,000 categories of goods. Peru is amongst Latin America's fast-growing economies. Surging copper production saw economic growth beat expectations earlier this month of 3.26% in July from the same time a year ago. The accord involves significant market openings, tariff cuts on thousands of products, and pledges to project investors across the 12 countries: Australia, Brunei Darussalam, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, the United States, and Vietnam. Japan has made major concessions, open its market wider to major food exporters such as Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. One can enjoy a unique atmosphere of the 21st Tashkent International Tourism Fair, Tourism on the Silk Road, within the framework of 2 pavilions, an open exposition area, and 700 national and foreign tour companies. The entire spectrum of Uzbekistan's tourism, its development and new directions will be presented for 3 days. One can be introduced to the goods of the national handicrafts, historical findings, brochures, leaflets, bright compositions of national costumes and musical instruments. Leading national and foreign tourism agencies, hotels and recreation zones decorate the second pavilion. The specialized program of business meetings entitled Hosted Buyers, presented for the first time last year, is the main instrument of establishing direct contacts among the representatives of the sphere from different countries. The performance of folklore, ethnographic and dance bands of Uzbekistan, diverse workshops, presentations and meetings are included in the program of the event. In the United States, a small single-engine plane crashed into the backyard of a home in the city of Compton, south of Los Angeles. The male pilot was alone in the plane and was taken to a local hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. Commercial pilot Esteban Jimenez said he heard about the crash when he arrived at the local airport. The plane and the rear fence of the home were damaged. Benson said the home was occupied at the time, but the person inside the house was not injured. The National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration were investigating the crash. In China, meanwhile, a model airplane show kicked off in the country's Tianjin municipality, featuring 16 world-class operators from Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Spain, Israel and Austria. The operators piloted model helicopters and fixed-wing airplanes of even better visual effects to stage a series of acrobatic moves, including low circles, contrails and somersaulting following the rhythm of the live music. The show was held every day till tomorrow Sunday, and 2 performances will be given each day. Highly simulated model airplanes with vortex engines will stage and following performances to bring a visual feast for the audience. Also in China, spectators from the Luzhu International Water Carnival this year got the chance to watch thrilling competitions and performances in the city of South China's Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. The carnival introduced the P750 high-speed pneumatic boat rally for the first time and saw a total of 23 teams from around the country taking part in the competition. The spectators were also fascinated by an aerobatic performance and a motorboat race on the following night. The aerobatic performance involved people flying with a water jetpack, and again special lighting and sound effects. It created a scene that resembled a fairy tale. A highlight of the carnival involved 2 outstanding motorboat athletes dueling against each other, with Wu Ronghua emerging as the victor.
Well, that's it for this week's Primetime Asia. We'll be back at the same time again next week with more news and features from the Asia-Pacific region. For more news, you can visit our website at www.rtbnews.rtb.gov.bn. I'm Malini Jani, wishing you a good week ahead and good night in the meantime. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.